Okay, thank you. This is Pastor Will Utech. Bill is the mission executive here at the Minnesota South District. Bill, tell us a little bit about the ministry you have, and what's happening here. What's God called you to do?
So I got called to come here to work with pastors and congregations and leaders to start new ministries and plant new churches, because we're convinced that new ministries and new churches win new people for Christ faster and more efficiently than do established ministries and established congregations. So to facilitate the doing of new things is my primary job here, and I get to work with, I get to talk and do a lot of fun stuff with a lot of fun people.
And you have roots in this district.
Yeah, I mean, Lori and I both went to Concordia St. Paul. We both grew up in Wisconsin, so we kind of knew the upper Midwest, and when we went to college here, we got to know the Twin Cities. My first call was not to this district, but it was to an SELC congregation in Bloomington, which was surrounded by congregations in this district. So in my local circuit, I got to know some of those pastors, one of whom was Dean Natesty, and that's when we first met, and then of course we got to know each other better when we were both serving on the faculty at Concordia Seminary. So it was great that I got to come back up here and work with him.
Tell me a little bit how God is working in missions today in Minnesota South. What's He doing to carry out the Great Commission?
Well, the Great Commission says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations," and God is facilitating that really well here, because He's bringing all nations, it seems, to Minnesota. Not only to the metro area, but to all of the good-sized, the large towns or small cities that are in Minnesota South. I mean, the only place in the world where there's more Somalis is Somalia. And
Minnesota.
In Minnesota, right here in Minnesota, and we have people coming from all over the world and settling here, and not only the Twin Cities, but in places like Faribault and Owatonna and Albert Lee and Austin, Minnesota, and Worthington, Minnesota. So it is a great mission opportunity to be here at this time. Plus, we have a lot of Anglo people who are nuns. They're unclaimed by any religion, and as you know, it's one of the fastest growing segments of our population in the United States, the nuns are, and we're well situated to make an impact in that mission field.
How so?
We have pastors and congregations who are located in places where all of these nuns are living, moving, and having their being. And if we can figure out a way to speak their language and to translate the gospel and preach the gospel, proclaim the gospel in word and deed in ways that they can hear, the gospel will do the rest.
You were an excellent pastor. How did you do this when you were in the parish?
It was. I got in probably when I started my ministry back in the mid 80s. I still got in on an America that was still considered part of Christendom. It wasn't really post-church, or at least it wasn't post-church here in the Midwest. So it was probably a little easier for me. But what we did was we tried to find ways to engage the community we tried to build relationships and friendships with the people in our community. We did that through making our people making personal calls on the people who visited our congregation, because in that day and age, people were still looking to join congregations, so attractional ministry could work. And we just decided to use the gifts of the congregation in ways that would have been sinful had we not used them. My congregation had pound for pound more musical talent than many congregations, so we put that musical talent to work in the worship services. My congregation had a love for family and children that a lot of congregations probably didn't have, so we put that love to work in an early childhood, first in a preschool and then in an early childhood center, which had a huge impact in our area of Bloomington. which is where the starter homes for young married couples who wanted to live on the north side of the Minnesota River and have, be able to commute easily, or single family parents, or as it turned out, immigrants started to move in during my latter years in eastern Bloomington. So that was a really good mission field, because that whole area was transitioning, and we found a way to serve the people in our community. And when serving is your ministry and not your job, people get that.
That passion comes through from you. What can the district do to inspire congregations to step out of their comfort zones?
I think we start by setting an example ourselves. You can't lead people to where you're not willing to go yourself. So we have my colleagues live a missional life. They are servant leaders. We try to become involved in things that we would ask congregations to do ourselves. We try to become involved ourselves in things that we would ask congregations to do.
Give us an example.
So, for example, one of the things that we do is to ignite that mission passion and fervor. We have been sending rural and small town pastors and congregations to Central America on get-to-know trips, and we give them an opportunity to pick out a community that they would like to partner with in terms of Witness, Mercy, Life Together for 5 years. And when that happens and they become involved in God's mission to the ends of the earth, we found that it usually helps them become more involved and effective in God's mission to Jerusalem, their own particular Jerusalem and Judea. And
can you give us an example of one of those churches?
Oh yeah, one of the first congregations to go to Guatemala was my home congregation, where we belong now, at Trinity Lutheran in Medford, and we went on the get-to-know trip. My pastor, Pastor Mark, and the president of the congregation went down, and one of the villages that we visited was is named Taguani. And when Pastor Mark and Troy got back, they decided that Trinity Medford could partner with Taguani and with Calms for 5 years in a row. And so the first time they went down, they did an all-week-long sports camp for the kids in the village. And just putting on a sports camp. And you start to build relationships when you do that. And those people become our friends. And we take an interest in them. And I didn't go. I went with them on the get-to-know trip, but the first trip that they made as a congregation to serve in Taguani, there was a team of 12 that went down from the congregation. And Calms did a great job of providing cultural helpers and translators, but it was the people from the congregation who put on the sports camp. And when they came back, and there were people in the congregation who were skeptical of this, but when our team came back and Pastor Mark gave them an opportunity to report back to the sending agency, the congregation that sent them down there, when it got so quiet that when they were telling their story, you could hear a pin drop. And I was standing in the back watching and listening, and you just knew that God's people in that place were going to embrace this opportunity. And not only did they embrace Taguani, but it set them up to be more open to people in their own community and start doing things in their own community. The trip to Guatemala opened up their eyes to mission opportunities at home that they had not seen before, which is exactly what we were hoping and praying would happen. So the district has sponsored those kinds of trips for every year that I've been now here. We just accomplished our fourth one.
And it seems to me that in the past we said districts did mission on behalf of congregations, and a lot of times that ended up being instead of congregations.
Right.
This seems like a whole new strategy.
Yeah, one of the things that we repeat all the time is that districts don't plant churches, churches plant churches. So we do what we can to facilitate the church being the church. And congregations and pastors who want to step out in faith, we're going to be their partner. We're not going to do it for them, but we will be their partner.
Facilitate. What's the biggest obstacle that Minnesota South churches face in bringing Christ's love to people?
I think that whole move from Christendom to post-church, post-Christendom, the people in our congregations, especially the congregations that are in rural, small-town areas, for one thing, those areas have been losing some of those areas have been losing population. So that's certainly a challenge. But when you've grown up in a church and you're used to church to having a preferred place in the culture, so that the school or no one in the community would ever schedule an event for Sunday morning. They'd leave that open for church. They'd never schedule an event for Wednesday evening because everyone knows that that's church night, right? Well, it doesn't work that way anymore. And I think our congregations have a hard time accepting those facts and the new reality and adjusting to the new reality. So if we can help them do that, we're certainly going to help them see reality for what it was. And you can mourn that you've lost some of that, but that also opens new doors and new possibilities and new opportunities.
Like going to Guatemala.
Like going to Guatemala, yeah.
What's the biggest blessing you see in mission in the district?
It's got to be that we do have pastors who love people and who want to see the kingdom grow. They might need some coaching and some help and working with their leadership to open their eyes to new possibilities and some encouragement to step out in faith and try new things. But they are really a huge asset, and the fact that they are in a place where God is bringing the nations and where there's so much mission opportunity here in the Twin Cities, in the Twin Cities and the larger towns and cities throughout Minnesota South.
Opportunity for the love of Christ coming through pastors and people to touch the lives of refugees and immigrants and those who don't know Jesus.
And those who don't know Jesus, and to figure out how God has gifted us to be a gift to them. And to step out in faith and to trust that God will provide the provision necessary to do that good work. So it's like we were talking last night, money follows mission. He wants us to trust Him and to step out in faith and try new stuff, and the resources will show up.
And that's a faith response.
The resources show up.
Thank you very much for this time.
Sure.
We wish God's richest blessing on your ministry and the ministry of Minnesota South.
Thank you so much. God is blessing us, and we want to be a blessing in return.